I love when a video game series does a spin-off that completely revamps the series. Pokemon, for example, is a master of this, with almost every spin-off completely changing the core formula while still retaining elements of the main series. A series I've never gotten into for multiple reasons is Metal Gear Solid. Yes, I know I should get around to play it. However, that didn't stop me from playing Metal Gear Rising Reveangance. Lots of people say it's one of Platinum's best games, and a really good entry to the saga. So now that I've finished it, I have some things to say. First of all, for those who don't know, Metal Gear Rising wasn't developed by Konami or Kojima, initially at least. In fact, this game was being developed by Kojima at first, but he had to back down because according to him, his team was inexperienced to make the game he envisioned. So who should develop this over-the-top crazy action game none other than Platinum Games? So Kojima laid out the story and the general idea of the game, while those fine folks at Platinum developed it. And my god, is it truly crazy and fun. Essentially, this game is a huge adrenaline fest, and while it could seem repetitive, I assure you it's not, and here's why. Let's start with the gameplay first. Even though it's a part of the Metal Gear saga, Rising is definitely not a stealth game. It does give the player the possibility of sneaking his way past enemies in some sections, but it's just broken as fuck. Anyway, you, as Raiden, this super cool dude with an awesome design and even more awesome voice, have a cyborg body with all the enhancements it can bring you. You're stronger, faster, have better reflexes, and can cut every enemy with your sword. Yes, a very important part of the game is the Zandatsu'd, in which time slows down, and if the enemy is weak enough, you can cut him into 1,000 pieces. An awesome mechanic, Zandatsu'd is also an integral part of the experience, as you not only cut objects flying your way, or limbs to weaken enemies, but you can also one-shot weaker enemies by cutting them apart and grabbing their cyborg spine, which completely refills your health and fuel cells. This could seem pretty cheap, but if you crank up the difficulty, I assure you, you will be insta-refilling your health a lot. Metal Gear Rising is your typical Platinum Games hack and slash, with heavy and light attacks, combos, parries, etc. etc. Going into this game, I was doubtful I would have enjoyed playing it, as it could have seemed pretty repetitive. However, what I think makes it enjoyable is how the game makes you feel so powerful while still hitting hard on you with some pretty tough enemies. Oh, and the animations are just so beautiful and transition so well, watching your character in slow motion just feels good. Anyway, let's jump right into the game. Metal Gear Rising starts up with a little cutscene, showing how much the world has changed as there are cyborgs everywhere. A bad guy immediately shows up and cuts everything with his badass red blade. After a brief section with some pretty easy enemies, you're quickly thrown into a boss fight, against none other than a Metal Gear. Yeah, remember those giant robots from Metal Gear Solid? You fight one of these in the first minutes of the game. And what a fight it is, especially when you get around at low HP and start throwing it and running in towers and evading missiles by jumping over them. And this is one of the parts of the games I like best, the boss battles. Bosses are these badass cyborgs like you, and all of them work in a different way while still being thing to slice at. In Metal Gear Rising there are various levels, and at the end of each one there's a boss. However, there can be more than one boss on each stage, as each level varies in length. It's pretty unconventional, and it left me pretty perplexed on why a certain level exists. Those who play the game know exactly which one I'm talking about. Talking about the stages, they are complete and utter shit. Yes, I hate Metal Gear Rising's level design, as it's not only linear and claustrophobic, but without the minimap you would be absolutely lost. Metal Gear Rising is a pretty short game, and the stages are set in a city, a sewer, another city, and a military base. Nothing special here, but they are just done wrong. For example, in the sewers, there's also this walkway above the ground that you could theoretically use for stealth. However, you can't jump high enough to get on it, and if you find a set of stairs, then good luck staying on the railway, as if you go too fast, Raiden will start doing these weird flipping moves that will definitely make you fall off. And don't even get me started on the Japanese garden. For some reason there is a little part of the level where you go through a Japanese garden. And when I say little part, I mean it. As always, you have two options: fight through the enemies or stealthily avoid them. However, there's a problem with both of them. If you decide to fight through them, you either fight them on the roofs, where you just drop down every combo you make, or on the ground, where the camera will start showing it's just bad in cramped spaces. If you decide to go stealthily, however, you have to run on the roofs again, and there's no way to see what the enemy's cone of vision is, so you'll 100% trigger someone and you'll have to fight. While we're still on the topic, let's talk about another thing I didn't like about Rising. It's writing. But first, a little consideration. Metal Gear Rising takes inspiration or features writing characteristics from the Metal Gear saga. In fact, even in the original Metal Gear Solid in 1998, despite having some pretty heavy themes, there were some parts where the writing was purposefully lighthearted or silly. Rising does exactly that. The vast majority of its dialogue is written so that you don't quite understand if it's purposefully bad or if the writers were on drugs. Awful one-liners, lots of codenames, awkward conversations, and philosophical conversations towards the end just makes you want to skip the cutscenes. Anyway, I've shitted on the game enough. It seems as though I didn't like it, but if you endure these parts that I've said before, what you'll have is an amazing action game that isn't afraid to talk about sensitive issues such as child soldiers, government corruption, and war economy. This is also one of the staples of the Metal Gear saga, showing stuff only a few games like Spec Ops have introduced to the mass market. Metal Gear Rising's plot, however, isn't anything new. You're on the path of Revengeance to stop this evil corporation that fuels wars around the world and trains child soldiers. Something our protagonist has been a part of, and explains why he takes this path of revenge. The final boss, which is pretty unconventional, is someone that the characters talk about and you have no idea who he is, so you're left confused that maybe he was introduced in another Metal Gear game. Actually no, he's just someone you're expected not to question who he is. Speaking of secondary characters, nothing new here. Your allies support you through the codec, and you can only speak to them whenever you want, and they'll usually have something to tell you. The only companion worth noting in my opinion is Blade Wolf, an AI that once you defeat him, gets reprogrammed and joins you. His conversations are peculiar, as they are focused on what an AI can and can't do, if they are truly free or if they even have free will. More interesting, however, are the bad guys, especially Sam, who will seem 100 times more interesting if you'll play his DLC side story. Starting out as a simple bad guy, towards the end of the game, you'll notice he's not that one-dimensional as you thought, still having a sense of honor and even helping you in a way to defeat the final boss. While in the subject of DLCs, let me tell you that if you have the chance to play this game on PC, go for it. It's not only for the 60 frames per second, as even on consoles you have that, but the game is just better looking in general, and also has the 2 side story DLCs already in it, and some extra costumes as well. However, Platinum Games are known for their not so stellar PC ports, so graphical options are very limited, and the game isn't optimized that good. Talking about the graphics, let's jump right into the presentation of the game. Metal Gear Rising is obviously best played at 60 frames per second, but this is delivered even on the PS3 and Xbox 360. However, being made for the old gen consoles, the PC port simply has much higher res textures, models, and effects. Sure, maybe some more lens flares added here and there, but don't expect anything astonishing. It's still quite a pleasant game to look at. However, one thing that ticked me off is the color palette of the game. Grays, browns, and dull shades of other colors is what will fill your eye, and while I think it's in the tone with the game, seeing dull colors throughout the whole game isn't exactly wonderful, to say the least. Cutscenes appear semi-frequently, and are all done in full motion video, so they obviously look better in real-time gameplay. However, some cutscenes, while looking really awesome, left me with a "I wanted to be able to play this" feeling. Who knows why they decided to put in stuff like riding destroying 2 stealth drones that they could have just made in the game. But the music, oh my god. As I said before, the game really shines in boss battles, and the music that plays through them really gets your adrenaline rushing, with hard, fast beats, guitar riffs, electronic noises, and best of all, an actual singing voice. I just love when video game songs actually have words in them. Looking back at the final product, if you decide to buy Metal Gear Rising, you'll find a very fun action game that will keep you entertained for its short 5 to 6 hour campaign. If not for the story, at least for the gameplay. Even if you're not a fan of the Metal Gear Saga or never even played one, I think you'll still enjoy this game. However, for a fan of the saga, or just of Raiden, this game is a must, as you'll see him in his prime. Just don't expect any Snake cameos. See you in the next video.
But no, no, no,